I love that line that says, when I trust you, I don't have to understand. I know for me, that's something that I struggle with a lot, is trusting him even when I don't understand. I'm a kind of person that thinks logically, that likes to have a plan. And so I've had many conversations with God where I say, okay, I trust you, but can you tell me how? Can you tell me what to do? Can you tell me what you're going to happen? Like, I trust your plan, but can you at least let me know what the plan is? And a couple years ago, my wife and I were living in San Diego. I got this tattoo. It's Hebrew. It says, trust him. And it's from Psalms 37:5. And it says, commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he'll bring it to pass. And I got this tattoo not because I'm so good at trusting him. I got it as a reminder because I struggle with it so much. And so I got it on my right arm so I can look at it a lot. And it just reminds me to trust him. And in that verse, I like to break it down into 3 parts. The first 2 parts is our job. The third part is God's job. It says, commit your way to him, trust in the Lord, and he'll bring it to pass. So the first 2 parts, commit your way to the Lord, so just do what he's asking you to do. The second part is to trust him, and the third part, he'll make it happen. So whatever it is in your life, whatever you're looking for, whatever you think is next for you, just trust God. And even if you don't understand, because that's the point of trusting, right? If you trust him, you don't understand. You don't have to understand. If I'm riding in a car and I trust the person who's driving so that they know where they're going, then I don't have to worry about it, right? If I actually trust them, if I'm not sure, I'll probably give them directions, right? Or some of you that are newer drivers or maybe learning how to drive, for me, when my mom was in the passenger seat, she would always I understand she's teaching me how to drive, so she would give me helpful information sometimes, but sometimes it'd be like, don't hit that person. And I'm like, Mom, I'm not gonna hit that person. Like, I don't know everything on how to drive, but I know you don't hit people. All right, that's a free tip for all of you that are learning how to drive or don't drive yet. Don't hit people, okay? But to me, it was like, okay, you don't really trust me, which she didn't, because I was 16, 15, still learning how to drive, so she didn't really trust me. She probably is the same way now, though. If she rode with me, she would probably still tell me to slow down or not hit people. But the point is, if you trust people, then you don't have to do that. You don't have to keep reminding them. I'll say, God, I trust you, but if you truly trust them, you don't have to understand. So I'm going to pray, and then you guys can have a seat. Lord, I just thank you, Father, that we trust you, and we say that not even as a maybe we don't even believe it yet. Maybe we don't even actually trust you yet, but we say that as a faith statement, as a statement that we want to trust you. We're going to continue to remind ourselves to trust you. Just thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to hear from heaven tonight, this morning. Thank you for this in Jesus' name. Thank you, band. All right. I love Sunday mornings. I love this vibe. I know. Oh, thank you, Sean. Give it up for Sean. That's not easy. He makes it look easy, but that's not easy to do. No, I love the Sunday morning vibe. I know Wednesday night is a little amped up a little bit around here. I don't know how many of you guys do both Sunday and Wednesday. And my wife and I volunteer on Wednesday, or are here on Wednesdays as well. Every other Wednesday, not every Wednesday. But I love Sunday mornings. This here is my people. This here is my vibe. I'm much more chill. I'm much more relaxed. So I love being here on Sunday morning. So I appreciate you guys. My name is Josh Coan. If you didn't know, if you didn't get that link, my wife said that she was really excited. That was my wife, Jocelyn, that was preaching. So if you guys don't know that, that's why I'm her favorite. So that's why. But I mean, it's good too. She knows what I'm saying, and it's good too. So, but she is absolutely biased. So I want to start with today is going to be, and I forgot to ask Sam ahead of time if we could get the lights just a little bit brighter and the crowd lights a little bit higher. If you can, cool. If not, I forgot to ask you about it. But today I want to preach to the people in the back a little bit. This is for the people in the back. This is for the people, and you might be up front. People up front, you can listen to. There's good stuff too. But specifically for the people in the back, specifically for the people who might not want to be here. Okay, I'm going to say a bold statement from, and I'm not saying if you're in the back, you don't want to be here, because I'm absolutely someone that sits in the back and listens. There's a few of us, right, that sit in the back that actually pay attention and listen. And there might be people in the front that don't want to be here. I'm going to say something tough from the stage that might hurt my feelings, but it's okay if you hurt my feelings. And you can use the snow or the cold as an excuse, or maybe you just had a busy weekend or you got homework or something. I want people that are bold enough to raise their hand and tell me they don't want to be here this morning, and their parents made them come. Or maybe they came because they think it's the right thing to do, but they don't actually want to be here. Is there anybody that would actually raise their hand and tell me that? I will actually respect you more if you raise your hand, because then you have the boldness to actually say you don't want to be here. So nobody's going to actually say they don't want to be here. Seriously? Okay. I mean, good for you guys. That's great. That's good for you guys. I think some of you might be lying, and we'll have to do a sermon on lying next week, but that's not what this one's about. So if you don't want to be here and you don't feel like raising your hand, that's fine. There are plenty of Sundays that I don't want to be here, and I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but sometimes I'm tired. There is a hand up. Do we see a hand up? Thank you. What's your name? You don't have to say your name, but I appreciate that. I can't really see you there, but I appreciate your honesty if you don't want to be here. I don't want to be, that's not what my sermon's about. It's not about coming to church even when you don't want to be here. It's not, but I just want to acknowledge that, because I think that's important, that some people might not want to be here, and I'm going to try to speak specifically to those of you that might not want to be here today. I am going to do a little plug for my book. If you don't know, I am the Josh Coan that wrote this devotional book. I had somebody, is Daniel in here at all? I won't call him out. I'll leave him alone. But I wrote this devotional book. It's a one-year daily devotional that's everything is sports themed. I tell people that God created you. He knows your language, so he knows how to speak to you best. For me, it's sports. So he will talk to me during a Vikings game. Usually he'll tell me, don't do that, because that was a terrible decision that they made. But sometimes he'll say, but he'll speak to me through sports. So I wrote him down. It's a full-year devotional book. Makes a great Christmas present. I'm going to read one section for you guys, because one time someone told me you should read it so people know what it's actually. So hopefully this makes sense to you. So this is day 364. It's called Nameplates. I did an interview with former NFL safety Darren Carrington and asked him for one thing that sports has taught him about life. He told me that every locker in every locker room has one thing in common: the nameplates. They slide in and out. No athlete in any sport on any team has their nameplate drilled into their locker. It makes sense for the fringe athletes that can get cut or traded at any moment, but it's not just them. He said if you go to the New England Patriots locker room, even Tom Brady's nameplate slides in and out and can easily be replaced, which I thought was very interesting now, because his name slid out, right? It's in a different locker room now. Carrington told me that is how firm your identity is in sports. This is somebody who played in the NFL for 8 years. He said if you put your identity in being a professional athlete, it could change that quickly. So instead, he said, find your identity in something that is never going to change. And the only thing that will never change is God's view of you. He created you, he loves you, and he's proud of you no matter what. Darren Carrington said that in your metaphorical nameplate in God's locker room, it's drilled in, it's superglued, and it's never going to change. There are a lot of things in this world that try to define your identity. It may be your sport, your job, the clothes you wear, or the friends you have, but everything in this world is subject to change. You could lose your job, your friends could leave. Don't place your identity in something that can change. Instead, find your identity in God and who he says you are. It's the only thing that's never, ever going to change. So that's not what I'm talking about. Well, I'll talk about it a little bit, but that's just a little bit of what's in this devotional book. So I want to give a couple of these away to some sports fans. Do we have any sports fans? I know every time I do this, there's not that many. Okay, I see a couple. All right. Are there any in the back? Sports fans? I saw one back here. You want to come up here and get a devotional book? And if you don't want it, I encourage you to read it, but if you don't want it, it's a good Christmas gift too. So, what's your name? Josiah? Thank you, Josiah. Josh, nice to meet you. All right, I'm going to give one more away, and I'm going to do a trivia question. Okay? These never work. I'm going to start with one that's a little more difficult, and then I got an easy one just in case. So this one is, okay, first of all, how many of you believe that NASCAR is a sport? Okay, a couple of you. Does anybody know who just won the NASCAR championship last week? My wife knows because I made her watch it. Anyone else? Okay, that's what I thought. That's okay. An easier one. Does anybody know who won the Super Bowl this year? Okay, your hand up one quick. No? Do you know? This last Super Bowl, who just won it? Yeah. Tampa Bay, thank you. See, that was an easier one. Come get this book. Thanks. Thanks, Gabe. All right, so I figured Super Bowl would be a little easier because you don't have to be much of a sports fan to get that one. Again, read it. I encourage you. If not, go ahead and give that as a Christmas gift. Your mom or dad, I'm sure, will love it. All right, so today, I read a little section that was actually about identity. I'm not going to preach on identity a whole lot. I actually did a sermon. I did a Maranatha Chapel last year called "What Am I?" or "What Are You?" I encourage you to go on my YouTube, quick plug for my YouTube, and watch that message. It'll give you a little more. This is almost like a continuation of it, almost a little bit. So I'm going to encourage you to do that. But this message today is called "What Am I Doing Here?" So those of you that actually raised your hand or weren't honest enough to raise your hand may be thinking to yourself sitting in the seat right now, what am I doing here? Sometimes I ask that question myself, even when I'm on stage, like, really, what am I doing here? And in life, I feel like that's the question we're all wondering, right? What am I doing here? Why am I here on earth? So I'm going to try to answer the question that has plagued philosophers and theologians for millennia. What am I doing here? And I want you to ask yourself, what are you doing here? Not just at church this morning, but yes, ask that, but also just in your life, what are you doing? So I use the example when I'm talking about a video camera. So if you guys don't know, my full-time job here at the church is actually to shoot video. I'm on the video team. So a video camera is trying to replicate the human eye. And you can look at the cameras we got right here. They're much bigger than the human eye. And you have to get the white balance right. The lighting has to be right to get a good picture. The focus has to be good. All things that your eyeball does automatically, instantly, all the time. You walk into another room, your eye changes the right white balance, the right brightness, right? Your iris is open and closed to let the right amount of light in. It happens automatically. So every time I shoot with a camera, even on your phone, when you think it's pretty small and goes pretty quick, I'm telling you, your eye does it much quicker, much more efficiently, and is always correct. Your eye, you can look at something and your eye knows where to focus, right? Even in the back, like as someone that shoots video, the lighting in here, it looks great, Sam. You guys do a great job. It looks cool. But for a camera, this lighting is just torture. Like trying to take pictures, my wife takes pictures, right, for the social media. It's really, really hard to get, and if you guys look at our social media, there's never any shots of the crowd. Cannot see the crowd because the lighting up here is so much brighter. Using the back, I'm trying to look at you guys in the back. It's hard to see you because it's dark, but my eyes can adjust. As much as I can look at Rachel on the front row, and she's well lit, I look in the back. Even Daniel, who's sitting way in the darkness, I can see him, right? Sorry, Daniel, for calling you out. I know you don't like the attention. But what I'm saying, those of you way in the back on your phones, I can see you, right? You're not that slick. I can see you. My eyes can adjust, okay? Our eyes were created by God, and they're just a small portion of the complexity of the human body, okay? There is no one that would see a camera sitting on the floor, be like, oh, that's just an accident. That's just a pile of junk that came together, right? You see the complexities of a camera, and you know this is specific. It was created specifically for a specific purpose, right? To take pictures or video. So if that was the case, somebody at Canon or Blackmagic or wherever you get your cameras, if someone took the time to delicately create that, don't you think that you were also delicately created by a creator, right? And if you are created, that someone took that much time in creating you, and that every detail, he did it for a purpose. So if you only hear one thing, those of you in the back that might not be paying attention, I want you to hear this one thing. You were created by God for a purpose. If that's all you get, you guys can tune out, get on your phones, fall asleep, whatever you do the rest of the service. But remember that point. God created you uniquely for a unique purpose. Okay? If you and I were created with such attention to detail, which we know we are, right? You can't deny the complexity of the human body. Then we were created for a purpose. If you walked up on a pile of garbage sitting on the beach, you probably wouldn't think any value, any purpose in it, right? It's just random junk. But you are not random. You are not a mistake. I don't know how your parents got together. I don't want to think about how my parents got together. But whatever the situation is, it was not a mistake. You were created by God specifically. There's way more in store than whatever your parents were thinking. God has a plan and a purpose for you uniquely. Whatever the thing is, and just as kind of a quick side plug, if you want to know about the purpose of a creation, you go to the person that created it. You ask the person that created it. Just bought a new car, not new, it's used, but it's new to me. It has an owner's manual in the glove box, right? It tells you from the manufacturer, from the creator, how the car is supposed to work. So if you want to know how you're supposed to work, why you're here, what you're supposed to do, go to your creator. Yes, read the Bible, right? You have an owner's manual, you have a manufacturer's book on what to read, but also talk directly to your manufacturer. You know how great it would be if instead of reading this book in my glove box about my Impala, if I could call up, probably not the guy that runs GM, because he probably doesn't know the intricate details, but the guy that designed the Chevy Impala. You know what the information I could get from him on how it's supposed to work best, how to drive it the best, right? You can have a conversation with the creator of the universe. Think about that for a second. It's not even in my notes, but think about that for a second. So if something was created, so I said you have purpose. If you were created, there's two things that every person in this room shares, and everything that's ever been created specifically. I'm not talking about a pile of garbage. Anything that's been created specifically, you know two things. It has value and it has a purpose. So you in this room, every single one of you, has value and has a purpose. Anything that's ever been created. I don't care if it's a PlayStation 5 or a kitchen table. There is purpose in that, and there is value in that. And those of you guys might think, and in my mind too, PlayStation 5 is way better, has a way better purpose, and therefore has more value. But I'm telling you, kitchen tables can be expensive. Kitchen tables, they have a completely different purpose, right? But they have a lot of value as well. I know to you in your age right now, PlayStation 5 probably sounds a lot better and might fit your purposes on what you want to do, but go ask your mom about a kitchen table. Go ask your dad about a kitchen table. They may have spent a lot of money on their kitchen table because that's important, right? Side note, that'd be a good, you do like kitchen table and the value of like bringing your family together around the table. Maybe that'll be my next sermon. I'll talk about that. But I'm telling you, kitchen tables have purpose too. All right, so I love that because of the great Vin Diesel, the Fast and Furious movies are still relevant, right? They may not be good. You might not like them, but they're still relevant. So I'm significantly older than all of you. In fact, this movie came out before all of you. The original Fast and Furious is older than all of you, which is great. It's fun. Except for the other adults in the room, thank you. Came out in 2001, Fast and Furious. I was in high school, did not have my driver's license yet, but I went and saw that movie in the theater with my friends and some people. And I'm telling you, after that movie, that first one, they're just street racers now, right? They were stealing from trucks, but it wasn't like flying through buildings. They didn't go to space yet. They didn't take down international drug bosses, just street racing in LA, right? When that movie came out, and I didn't have my license yet, but I'm telling you, that movie made you want to drive, and drive fast. I remember my brother-in-law was one of the people that was at the movie with us, and he drove so reckless out of that parking lot, and my sister was so mad. But when you see a movie like that, it just inspires you, right? Just makes you want to go drive fast. So the plot of this movie, if you guys don't remember the first one, very simple, right? These guys had Honda Civics that they souped up, and then they used to steal from these trucks and street race, right? Just a very basic Honda Civic, base model economy car. So in my mind, I grew up, I only drive Chevys. Anybody else? I only drive Chevys. I'm sorry, Ford, Toyota, anybody else, I only drive Chevys. So, not Dodge, sorry. A lot of respect, but no, I will only drive Chevys. So, when I got my license and I got my own car, it was a Chevy Cavalier. Okay, that's all I could afford. In fact, it was a used one that had been in a wreck. Super good deal. We knew somebody. Chevy Cavalier. You guys probably don't even know what they are anymore. They stopped making them probably before a lot of you were born. But it was their economy car. It was their version of the Honda Civic. It was a very cheap, very fuel-efficient car, okay? That's what I could afford, so that's what I got. But in my mind, I was like, oh, I can be like Vin Diesel, though. I can put all this money into it. I can soup it up. I put a big stupid wing on the back because I thought I was cool. Wide body kit on a Cavalier. Like, you guys, I'll show you guys pictures. It was bad. But I thought it was so cool. I was like, this is going to be awesome. And the problem is, these guys I found out why they were stealing from these semi-trucks. Because cars are expensive. And even if you start with like a base model car, right, it was very cheap. But I thought I could put money into it. But I wasn't making that much at Dairy Queen. So I didn't actually get to soup it up the engine at all. Again, I put the big stupid wing on the back, the wide body kit that I couldn't afford to paint, so it was white, but I acted like that. I did that on purpose. I had a red Cavalier with a white wide body and a white wing. It was ridiculous. But I could never afford to put any money into the engine, right? So this Cavalier was so baseline, so boring. It was a manual transmission, which was fun. I see some approval, thank you. But it wasn't because to go faster, it was to be more fuel efficient. Like, it even had a little light when it tells you should shift, and it was like right away so that you get the best fuel mileage. I didn't do that. I waited as long as possible. So it was fun, but it was so slow and so bad. It was good for me because I was going to college in Oklahoma, so I could drive back and forth, and it got good gas mileage, which was great. But once you hit like 80 on the freeway, it starts to shake, okay? Like, literally, it would start to shake. And there's a turnpike down in Oklahoma where the speed limit's 75, so you can go like 90. Don't recommend that. Don't strike that from the record, don't. But my car would shake so bad, and it was really stupid that I got a ticket once going 90. Side note, don't do that. It's bad. Consequences, right, to life decisions. But so I had this Cavalier, really bad. It was great at slow speeds, fuel efficient. It did its job. But when you started going fast, it was useless. 1 year, I was down in college, and I had to get the clutch replaced on it. So I went over to my brother-in-law's house, and he could switch it out for me. So he took my car for the weekend. He was going to work on it. He let me drive his car. He drove a Mustang. Now, for those that, like me, are like, Mustang, sometimes they're not that great. This was a nice Mustang, okay? It was a little bit older, but it had a lot of work done. It had the 5.0, so it had the bigger engine, but also had work done to it to make it specifically to be faster. So I was excited, and I get in his Mustang, and I back out of the driveway, and I turn down the neighborhood roads, and it starts lobbing, and it feels like it's going to die. I'm like, this thing is struggling so bad. I'm like, why is this so bad? This is a car that he put time and money into the engine. Why does it struggle so bad? And then I took a left onto the highway, and I went through the gears so fast, and it just flew and was just a thing of beauty. Like, I had never been in such a smooth ride in my entire life. And I got up to the speed limit, past the speed limit, way faster than ever. I had to slow down, so I didn't get a ticket in my brother's car and have to explain that this isn't my car, it belongs to Kelly Emberton, and that's not my last name, and make a whole complicated thing. So I didn't get pulled over, but what I learned that day, and what will stick with me forever, is that car was built for speed. That car was built for a specific purpose. It didn't like driving in the neighborhood roads at 25 miles an hour. It felt terrible. The same way my Cavalier was built for fuel efficiency, it was terrible when it was driving fast. It was just uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for everybody. It was bad. It didn't like driving fast. So what I'm telling you is these cars were built for specific purposes. You, right, we already established, were created by God for a specific purpose. You will never be happy. You will never be satisfied with life. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care how successful you are by the world's eyes. You will never, ever be satisfied in life until you're in your God-given purpose. Okay? You have to go and pursue what God created you to do. Just like these cars, as great as they were at their given thing, they didn't do well when they were outside of their designed creative purpose. So that seems heavy, right? Purpose. Anybody think that feels heavy? Anybody in the back think that feels heavy to like, wow, I need to get in my purpose or I'm never going to be happy or satisfied in life? Especially when you're young, you think of your purpose as like, that's out there. That's something out there that I'm going to get to at some point. Right? I'm old and I'm still think of purpose that way. Like at some point when I get there, my wife kindly reminds me all the time to be happy right now and don't focus on what's next and what could be. Purpose can be a heavy topic. So I'm going to go real heavy for a second. Acts 13:36. I gave it to Sam late, so we might not have it. But it says, now when David had served God's purpose in his own generation, he fell asleep, he was buried with his ancestors, and his body decayed. All right, that's kind of dark, sorry. That's falls asleep is death. David died, but it said, when David served God's purpose in his own generation, he fell asleep, died, right? I want that said about me whenever I die, whenever that is. I want God to say, you served your purpose in your generation. And everyone in this room, I hope that you want that said about you, that you served your purpose in this generation. So I absolutely am telling you, hoping that you strive for that purpose, whatever it is that God has for you, that you go for it. But that's not the only thing purpose is. We think of purpose as, at the end of the day, when I die, that I serve my purpose. But it's not just in game. You have a purpose in each and every season of your life. A while back, I preached a sermon here about seasons, and one of the points was that in every season, you have purpose. So, in this season, in your life right now, I want you to think about what is your purpose. And you can go all the way down to the details of like, Sunday morning, I'm here. What is my purpose? Why are you here? Because you might think, oh, I'm just here because my mom brought me here. I'm just here because my dad made me come. You might think, I'm just here because my friends are here, or I'm just here to play video games, or whatever it is. But your purpose in being in this room right now, I want you to think of that intentionally about purpose. Why are you here this morning? Is there somebody that you can talk to and make their day because you befriended them when they felt alone? Can you serve in the AV booth? Can you serve on the worship team? Is there purpose? Can you at least be a good example, right? Maybe there's people in this room that have a lot of friends, but they don't have a lot of Christian friends. They don't have a lot of positive influences in their life. Can you be a positive influence in that person's life? So just talked about David. Pastor Ryan talked about David last week. And when I did a middle school chapel earlier this week at Maranatha. So if any of you were there, I talked about David. But he was anointed king, right? You all know the story of David. King David was anointed king. Ryan talked about how he immediately went back into his dad's field and was watching sheep. So even though you might think, well, David's purpose, right? Because we know the story. We know the end of the story. David was born to be king of Israel, right? To rule a nation. But even when he was given that purpose, he still went back into the field and was intentional about what he was doing that day, in his life that day. He was watching his dad's sheep. He was protecting them, right? He was learning, he didn't know about it, but was learning the very skills he would need to face Goliath and to eventually propel him to the kingdom. Side note, I did a whole sermon on this called David Had a Cause Before He Was King. If you read the text in 1 Samuel 17, I'm not going to go there, but he says, when he goes out to fight Goliath, he says, is there not a cause? And even though all of you, maybe not all of you, most of you know David was king of Israel, when I say David, the first thing you think is Goliath. David was more known for his cause when he was a kid than what he was king of a nation, and he's more known for what he did as a kid. So don't downplay whatever your purpose might be right now in this season of your life, because this might be the most important thing you do in your life. This might be what is your memory, your legacy that is passed down, might be what you do in high school or middle school right now. But David was out there. He learned these skills. There was purpose in that season. There was obviously purpose when he killed Goliath. The thing is, even after he killed Goliath, he didn't go to the kingdom right away. He didn't go to the throne right away. He still had to wait. There was still a season of his life where he had to learn and grow and do different things. And so I want to encourage you, maybe even caution you a little bit if whatever you have big dreams and they seem far away, just be patient and be purposeful in this season right now. And honestly, I'm preaching to myself as much as I'm preaching to you guys, because being intentional in the day that you're in is sometimes really hard, right? There's probably two groups of people right now that are hearing me. Some that say, I don't have a dream, I don't have a vision, there's not a purpose that I have designated right now, and I want to encourage you to look for something, to find something. But I'm telling you, even if you don't know end game, you can know what you're doing right now and have purpose in this season. But I'm also speaking to people like me who might have ideas of what they want to do, big dreams out there, and it's hard for you to focus on this season right now because you're thinking about what's going to happen down the road, what could happen down the road. So I'm speaking to both of those people that there is a season of your life right now where you can have purpose. One way, I talked about David developing his gifts and talents to eventually fight Goliath, but he also used those gifts and talents to protect the sheep. In this season right now, you can use your gifts and talents to glorify God. It's easy to point out the band, right? Very talented band members. They're using their gifts, every Sunday and Wednesday to glorify God. The people that maybe don't get as much attention to the lights and the AV people, also using their talents to glorify God, right? To help build this atmosphere that we have in here to help. And honestly, and this is a bit of a side note, but I've had conversations with people, usually older people or more traditional people that are like, oh, all these lights and things, it's just a concert, it's just entertainment. And they kind of downplay these people that put all their hard work and use their God-given talents to glorify God. And they say it's just a show. But let me tell you, God sees you guys, and God is so proud of you guys. And this is how they can use their talents to give God glory and to worship him. So the same way that the people up here on stage are singing for God, right? We all see that they're worshiping God. The people that do the lights, the people that run the cameras, the stream, they're all glorifying God, using their talents. That's worship to God. I have a scripture verse that I'm not going to read the whole thing, but in Exodus 31, God's talking to Moses, and he's telling him to find these different people, all these craftsmen that have abilities, that can make things for the tabernacle, that can carve things, that can build things. And he's saying, gather all those people. The Spirit of the Lord is going to go upon them, and they're going to build my house. And those craftsmen that may not always seem like that's giving glory to God or that's worship to God, if you have a craft, if you have a skill, when you use that, you're glorifying God. So for those that have those skills or whatever other skill you might have, use those, find ways to use that. I like to use sports as an example. Tim Tebow is now a dated reference, although he tried an NFL comeback, so maybe he's somewhat relevant again. But I love the story of when he was in the national championship game. You guys know Tim Tebow, quarterback for Florida. When he was in the national championship game, he wrote John 3:16 on his eye black, which is cool, right? But then the crazy thing is, during that championship game and immediately following after, John 3:16 was Googled 94 million times. And here's what blows my mind. I used to hear that and be like, whatever. But 94 million people Googled John 3:16. Those of you that have been in a church before, do you know John 3:16? That was the first verse I memorized in kids' church. Actually, it was the other building when I was in kids' church. But first verse I memorized, John 3:16. So this is 94 million people that didn't know John 3:16, are now looking it up and reading John 3:16 maybe for the first time. Tim Tebow used his platform as sports. He worked very hard to get very good at the collegiate level to have this influence this platform. He recently made a comment. I couldn't find the exact quote, but he said, sports is just a platform. I love sports. I love playing sports. I want to be the best I can be. But it's all, at the end of the day, it's a platform for me to speak into people's lives and to do good. So if you're an athlete, if you play sports in your high school, you probably don't have the platform of Tim Tebow in the national championship game, but you do have people in your life that look up to you. You do have teammates that you share a locker room with. I talk to athletes all the time, or former athletes, whether it's the NFL or in high school. You never get that locker room again. You never get those bus rides again. You have that moment, make the most of it. Influence those people, right? And I'm not even saying you got to be overly preachy, although it's great. to share the gospel, but at least be a friend, at least be a positive influence. Maybe they're lonely, maybe they're hurting. Be that for them. And then what you do now could help you find your purpose further down the road, right? Singing is an easy example. You can develop your skills while you're worshiping, but then also you can develop your skills and maybe get better. And maybe your dream, your end game is to win a Grammy for God, or to put on shows or worship for large churches. What you do now could help you develop that. What you do now, speaking on stage, right? If you feel like you are called into ministry and you want to speak on stage at some point, come talk to me or Dustin. Come talk to one of us. Not that we're going to give you the whole Sunday maybe, but give you opportunities to work on that, to develop that. And your purpose now might help you find purpose down the road. So maybe you don't have no idea what you're supposed to do. Try something. Do something. Take guitar lessons, right? Play a sport. Just try. Don't even I remember focusing too much on talent. I'm not that good at that, so I'm not going to try it. But just try it. See if you enjoy it. For me, a big frustration was I love sports so much, but I'm not that good, and that always frustrated me. Why did you give me this desire for sports, God, and then not give me the talent to actually make it to the NFL someday? I'm sure there's plenty of good reasons, not the least of which I would have been hurt a lot in the NFL. Those guys are big and they hit really hard. But I was able to use sports. I do freelance video with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and you guys familiar with FCA? The book that I wrote, obviously, my love for sports came through in that, and I needed that. So sometimes it might not even be what you're talented at, but what you enjoy. My wife and I are putting together this creative team for this church, for the youth group. If you like photography or taking video or think it might be cool, come talk to us and come give it a try. Maybe it sticks, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just something you do every once in a while, and maybe you give it up and it's not really your thing. Give it a try. Learn and develop those skills as much as possible. So it's great to have goals and dreams and what I want to be when I grow up, but it's almost more important, I would say, to pursue purpose now. What you're doing right now, what can you do to find purpose in your life right now?